Hola, Filterinos. Before we get to the episode, we wanted to take a moment to address the June 24th, 2022 Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. As you know, this decision stripped away the right to have a safe and legal abortion. We believe everyone should have the freedom to decide what's best for themselves and their families, including when it comes to ending a pregnancy. This decision has dire consequences for individual health and safety and could have harsh repercussions for other landmark decisions. Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health and independence of all Americans. Learn more by visiting podvoices.help. If you're able to support others, please consider donating to abortion funds. We're going to have a bunch of links in our show notes. Everybody here at Pop Filter encourages you to speak up, take care, and spread the word. Now on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. This season is 1982, and the movie in question tonight is Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a movie that has some topics that we're going to get into tonight. I'm going to bring, I just called Greg and Mike back out. You know, like usually I like to mix up the contestants because it's a game show. You're going to get points based on how well you do, how well you talk about the movie, how well you make me laugh, how well you compliment my beard. But
good beard, Ryan.
Thanks, Mike. I'm going to push all that aside because coincidentally, we're doing Fast Times on the night of the Roe v. Wade, overturning. And Fast Times is, I think, a really important movie as far as the topic of abortion goes. What were you guys going through today in preparation for this show?
I'm going to be honest. I thought we were here to talk about the constitutionality of ordering pizza to school, and I am bummed.
Yeah, it was the way it lined up with the sort of like casual way in which this movie deals with abortion, like in a perfect. It feels like closer to like a perfect society where. It's certainly not like an easy choice, and it's certainly not without like any decisions or any repercussions or whatever. But ultimately, it's safe, effective, and everyone can move on with their lives. Versus the absolute like yawning abyss of anarchy that this decision just absolutely throws the country into, with these retrograde trigger laws that immediately get put on the books. Some states have like different sets of laws, and so it's not clear which are going to prevail and how the states are going to interact with one another about travel or pills delivered through the mail. And it feels like going back in time, and I guess that's really what it is. 82. There's like 10 years after the initial decision, and it seems already so settled.
And it's 20 years before we get movies like Knocked Up, where they won't say the word, and they make a joke in the movie, like metatextually, about how they can't say the word but won't say the word, and will just say schmishmorshin.
Yeah.
I think that it's confusing to people. I did some research on this today, and I think it's confusing to people that like this is, as the second Roe v. Wade was put into play, it was controversial, and it was very accepted for decades. And it wasn't until, you'd be surprised how recently, people were like, we don't like this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mainly as a political weapon, sort of embraced by evangelical Christians who had sort of not had much of a take on it at all.
And they were goosed until they did, so that they could get the votes. And
right.
Christians for a long time were mostly Democratic voters because the Republicans had some horrible views on how they should treat people.
They're always doing that thing where they twist their mustache and kind of cackle.
And Christians are mostly anti-mustache, so they're like, we're not having any of that.
Well, unless you're going to have the full beard too, yeah.
And even that in some circles. I don't know anything like that.
We are going to talk about the role that abortion plays in this movie, something that we would have done normally, but I think today it's going to be even crazier just because of, as Greg said, how this movie handles abortion is almost refreshing in a movie that is 30 No, 40. Oh
No,
my
it's
God.
40.
It's
40 freaking
years
years,
old.
dude. Yeah.
40 fucking years old.
Yeah, dude.
Woof.
Yeah, for sure. You know, the movie, the other movie, like, to just compare it to is, Never, Rarely,
Sometimes
Always. Yeah.
Is that the bus movie?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where she like goes on a trip to New York as a young girl to be able to secure an abortion, and just how dramatically different already that world is,
Mm-hmm.
and then how now there's an extra layer on top of that. I mean, they're like, and the idea that they're coming for more.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is already so awful, and it's going to materially make women's lives worse, and it's going to kill women. Women are actually going to die. This country, we are awful about mortality for maternity, and so we're sentencing so many women to that, and then on top of that, lives that they did not choose for themselves, and that it held up against this movie where it's just a girl's life is not ruined. There's no way
she has a rough afternoon and then probably a rough few weeks.
And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that she goes through. Let's not make it like she's just whistling
It's
Dixie
not
to the
easy.
park.
No.
It's not
But
done
she's
in a
laughing
casual
after.
way.
Like, it's a weighty. It definitely it's a weighty laugh. It helps JGL grow. But I don't know if this is the platform. Hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. My wife and I live in Colorado, and we have a spare room, and we are figuring out ways to open it up to people who need to travel. So
yeah, hopefully you have a job that is cool with that. We're gonna try to have fun tonight. We're gonna try and talk about, crack this movie open like we always do. We're gonna try to give Mike all the points because Mike always wins. But
I'm kind of the Spicoli of the group.
we're gonna try to focus. Awful day. Let's take a break.
That's how you're ending it. Awful day. Da-da-da-da.
In one of the most famous Hollywood stories, since Steven Spielberg bought a broken shark named Bruce, young reporter Patrick Fugget somehow tricked a high school into letting him go undercover at a high school for a year. He wrote a book called Fast Times at Ridgemont High. A year later, his script, based on his book, was handed to AFI wonderkind Amy Heckerling, an odd choice for a director at the time because she didn't have a penis. Heckerling would direct the teen comedy of the 80s, the teen comedy of the 90s in Clueless, and of course the teen comedy of the 2000s in Loser. Mike, you said you would Venmo me $20 if I said that about Loser.
Ryan, you're a little low on my cans. Can you turn that up a scotch?
Oh, God damn it. You owe me $30 now. The loosely plotted movie follows the teenager exploits of freshman Stacey Hamilton, her older best friend Linda, her older brother Brad, her would-be suitor Mark Ratner, Mark's best friend Mike Damone, and Jess Spicoli, and about a dozen other characters as they spend one full school year on campus, at the mall, and at their woefully underparented homes. The movie was a hit in theaters in 1982, made stars out of everyone except Mark Ratner, and eventually went from cult hit to comedy staple. In his review, Pop Filter Hall of Famer Roger Ebert said, "If this movie had been directed by a man, I'd call it sexist. It was directed by a woman, Amy Heckerling, and it's sexist all the same. It clunks to a halt now and then for some heartfelt, badly handled material about pregnancy and abortion. I suppose that's Heckerling paying dues to some misconception of the woman's movement. But for the most part, this movie just exploits its performers by trying to walk a tightrope between comedy and sexploitation. Taste buds, we have seen dozens of teen sex comedies directed by males. Do we agree with Ebert? And what do we think Heckerling brings to the screen that your average male director wouldn't or couldn't have?"
I've been waiting my entire reviewing career to be able to say this. Fuck Roger Ebert.
Mike.
Feels good, right?
It feels so good. I'll whittle down right here why he's wrong. Are there tits? For sure. Do you know what Heckerling does that a male director doesn't? Is she doesn't linger on them. The camera doesn't zoom in on the tits. They are just also there. She also wanted to show Dode, and they wouldn't let her.
She did. I saw it.
You saw
Yeah.
Dode?
Yeah, there's a version with Dode.
Maybe I looked down. But
For
yeah,
long.
the scene between...
At your own Dode?
I was just staring at my Dode. The scene between Mike and Stacy is supposed to be longer. You see both of them. They both look awkward and nervous. The sexuality in this movie is never sexy.
Mike.
Where your
Yeah.
American
You ever been
Pie,
a teenager before?
your Porkies, all of them are like, it's silly, right? But it's really sexy when you just hide a camera for Shannon Elizabeth. Like, this sex felt real and goofy and awkward.
Greg, one of Ebert's points is that the sex was uncomfortable and awkward.
Yeah.
Actually, now Mike has taken over that point, but said it in a different way. He's now surpassed Roger Ebert on the film critic scale.
Yes, 2 thumbs up.
Ebert asked, why would they do that to these gorgeous kids? Why don't they shoot it pleasantly and have them have fun? Where's he coming from here?
I think that he's probably coming from the position of someone who did not have sex in high school, because it tends to be an awkward experience before you get the hang of it. And a lot of these guys, they're not like sticking around to figure out how to get better at it. That's the sleeping around thing. That's what's not fun about it, when you're not figuring out how to have fun together. The thing that it makes this more than just like a cheesy sex romp, though, is that it does have a lot of heart. And I think that what he can't accept is that this is a movie that's like, hey, girls are horny too. Mm-hmm. And that's not anti-feminist to say. And I think that she does an interesting job, Heckerling, distinguishing between what like the cinematic fantasy of sex and nudity is versus the reality. So when we think of like the most famous shot of maybe the history of film, Phoebe Cates walking towards the camera and unclasping her top, like that is filmed in such a filmic, phony way. And then the next time we cut back to her, she's got water in her ear and she's shaking the hell out of her head.
She needs a fucking Q-tip. The
and
most sexy thing of all time.
That's what I think the whole movie is doing, which is it's creating a break between the fictionalized world of cinema sex and the real world, which doesn't invalidate the real world. It just renders it the way it really is, which is like, you should be having sex in your 20s because like when you're a kid, you're not going to be good at it yet. So
that's why you do it as a kid.
Give yourself some time to learn, and then you'll figure it out.
And in your 20s, you'll make better decisions, probably, or like decisions that are like more towards you. You won't feel pressured or anything. Yeah. Well, I mean, but like, and like he made a decision that he thinks that is good for him. But like, I think that's part of what the movie does great is that it does not idolize him, which I think a movie directed by a male might. Yeah. The radio salesman. But it also says that Stacy made a bad decision. Her life changes from here on out, and she will make different decisions. But we're also not going to throw her in character jail, in guilt prison for the rest of the movie. And I think that's a weird thing for dudes to watch at the time.
Her decision is, I think my older friend might be a little full of shit. I'm going to stop listening to everything she says like it's gospel. I like this guy. What if I stop trying to fuck him or anybody and just hang out the person I like? I'm just going to do that now. Right. And I think that's an ingenious thing is the two characters that ooze sex and that they talk about it nonstop, Linda and Mike, both of them, with Mike, we see how bad he is and he was probably a virgin. He oozes it and he just wants to there's the chase. And, like, girls stare at him all the time. It's like he has just these pheromones pumping and all girls are looking at him lustfully. But he can't play and he runs away. And he even says it doesn't matter if a girl comes, and he, lives up to that later.
He's like an early pickup
piece of
artist.
Shit. Yes.
He wears a weird hat. He kind of negs all the girls around him. Yeah.
He pours drinks in his bedroom, but they're cream drinks. Like, they're like half bourbon, half cream.
Kahlua.
And do you know what he is? He thinks that he is cool because he also reads the articles of Playboy. And Playboy articles of like the stereo systems you should buy are also just for full of shit fucking incels who are buying Playboy.
And then Linda she talks about it a lot in a very authoritative way, but the way she gives a blowjob on the carrot made me go, I don't know if this girl's had sex
She's
either.
pretty clearly a virgin.
And then the
her
way
boyfriend lives in Chicago.
He can't go to graduation. She's crying.
He lasts for like 45 minutes.
That's when Jennifer Jason Leigh is at the end when she's reading it. It all comes together, and she's like, "Oh, she's so full of shit." Like this is her slut armor to make people. That's what she thinks she needs to do to make people think she's cool.
And I think that's sort of the balance that the movie provides is that. I'm not going to say that Linda and Damone are equally vile, or need to equally be, punished by the audience. But they are both people who think it's easier it's like they would rather, instead of going and living their lives and experimenting and losing and maybe failing, find a sidekick to mentor that they were never asked for, just like I'm going to feed this person full of bullshit so they believe my lies instead of trying to go out there and live my life. And I think that's that's a choice by Crow, but I also think that's a choice by Heckerling to show the different sides of what those relationships are like, even though
Dude, I swear I
they're
saw
basically
that
the
in high
same.
school. When I was in high school, I saw kids that would fall into this relationship all the time where like two kids who are both 15, one of them is like mentoring the other with all this BS about all the world weariness they have because of all the stuff they've done. And it's just like when you were a kid, part of what you do sometimes is you just kind of lie and make up stories. And that I thought was one of the most realistic parts of this, is that you have this friend who's like supposed to be so knowledgeable, but obviously she's like just 16 like you, and her boyfriend in Chicago is not a real guy probably.
But see, for me, it was always like take down the amount of touchdowns I threw in a game just to like not make the kid feel bad. I don't get where these two are coming from.
Yeah, like I only have one girlfriend in Canada instead of like the 7 girlfriends in Canada that I really have.
I don't know if this is on purpose or if this is like, I don't know, looking back on it now, but I also think that has a lot to do with the casting in that the faces are so different. It's classic Hollywood and TV to cast 25-year-olds in every high school role. But the difference between what Stacy looks like and Damone looks like, what Rat and Damone look like, what Stacy and Brad look like, I think it's all very much on purpose. Stacy and Rat look like fucking babies.
Especially
and
when they're on their
like
date.
Yeah,
they're on their adult date, and they're in
chairs.
the biggest leather chairs that grandpas used to smoke in, and they look like bibbies.
They both have to help each other to open the menu because each page is so big.
A great continuation of the Phoebe Cates boob scene, and then it's like, well, reality is the ear thing. That's not the only reality, because it's Brad's sexual fantasy is her walking and just opening her shirt, and then her walking in, I'm jerking off, the most embarrassing thing that anybody can walk in on you doing, and that is reality, is her horrified / laughing at you face.
Her face is perfect in
Yes.
that. Like,
You guys hear the background story on that one?
Tell the audience, Ryan.
He was holding a giant dildo, so that's her live reaction. She probably expected him to not be holding anything resembling a penis at all.
And for a second, you just know that there's 1 second there where she's like, oh no, what has happened?
Let's get to getting back to Heckerling, the structure of the movie, I think probably seemed fairly weird, not according to some of the 70s movies that we've done, not according to like Nashville, some of the Altman that we've watched. It's more similar to that than really any 80s teen romp that have been around. But it does give way to, I believe, not just John Hughes movies, which that's a little more obvious. They have a little more plot, but not as much as you would think. But Linklater movies.
Yes.
Where he's like, oh, I want to show kids coming of age, but I don't care about plot structure. But in this movie, this middle ground movie between Altman and Linklater, does this work? Does Heckerling do a good job of pushing you as the audience through, even though there's no like game at the end to win?
I think it works every once in a while. I'd be like, I don't know if this works, but by the end of the movie, it all does. Because the one who always, I've only seen this movie twice, once in high school, and I hated it, and I was like, this sucks. And
Really?
Once this week, and the biggest change of a movie I've ever had.
Oh wow!
Is this, and I fucking loved it. And Spicoli used to get under my skin. I thought he was like the fucking woodchuck in Caddyshack. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Huh?
You dick.
And I think he is delightful. It is a sketch show, and he's the sketchiest of the characters, but by the end, even he has heart, and his scene with Mr. Hand like seals it. And the sketch, the movie 49 Kentucky Fried Moviness of it bothered me less this time, because it all feels of a piece. Everybody's going through similar issues of identity. So if it's not plot driven, it is theme driven.
I don't think it bothers me. Like, I don't think that it bugs me, but I think it holds the movie back a little bit. I think it keeps the movie from engaging as emotionally as it could. And so I certainly I'm not mad at it. It's an interesting choice. I just think at the end of the day, it is too unstructured, and in a way, it makes it harder to reflect on what made the movie really work, which is like the looseness of it, I think, is intentional. Ultimately, I don't know that it totally works for me.
See, I totally get what you're saying, but I think that the issue with it is that, or the issue with the whole process is what you want to do is you want to be like, Stacey Hamilton's freshman year. And everybody's going to be like, what the fuck? No. What does that even mean?
Mhm.
You know, is she an athlete? Does she win a big race? No. It's just Stacey Hamilton's freshman year. And the only way to get that story told, and I think that story is told fairly perfectly, is to surround it with enough stuff to, you know, get to have every other tone that you need throughout it. And I agree with Mike. Like, this is the most I've ever liked it. And I think because we have Stacey, not just the character on the page, but the performance, I think that anchors the entire thing. Like, if you look at how much she's going through in every scene, it's more than a high school sports movie.
I guess to me, it feels like a condensed season of TV or something.
Yeah, but it only took 90 minutes to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's super condensed and everything. And again, like you always run there's always the danger that you're just the person who likes the movie the least, and so then it sounds like you hate it. Yeah. I really enjoy this movie, and I think I echo the sentiment that it was my most favorable viewing of it. But I did feel a little lukewarm on it, and when I went to attach exactly where those emotions came from, because I can't fault any of the performances. I don't find the movie like disgusting in any way. I actually find it to have a lot of heart and to be very beautiful and to make a lot of really good choices. But ultimately, I just felt like there was something keeping me from a total unimpeded enjoyment of the movie, and I think it's this. I do think it's the structure.
You're not saying that you hate it like Mike hates E.T.
No, I mean, honestly, I think you could easily put me on a show where I liked it the most. But I just, you know, because there's been a couple movies the last few seasons that I've just been like, this movie's disgusting and I hate it and it shouldn't exist and all this stuff.
And you didn't even watch Sallow.
I know, honestly. After I watched, what was that movie, Ryan, about the colonialist romp? With Michael Caine and
fuck.
Yeah, like that movie, I was just like,
The Man Who Would Be King.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way Sallow is worse than this movie. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. But yeah,
and then I was in the other position where I kind of liked that movie, and that was hard. It was just like to be the one to be like, I thought it was fun.
Well, actually, I thought that was okay that they did that.
Even though it's been declared the most racist movie of all time.
The movie has so much heart and so much scenes that are so powerful, but I just think that there is sometimes this very loose tissue connecting them. I agree, Ryan, that it's her that connects them, but that there just seems to be, I feel like the movie just needs more narrative thrust than ultimately it has.
Do you think because it is in this limbo between your Altmans and your dudes who did American Pie, like...
we said Linklater, not
Linklater.
Not the American Pie, the Whites brothers.
No, then I'd say Linklater and them. Like not time based, but the kind of movie it is based.
And I think it also does it with tone too. I think that we've talked mostly about how it has how time has worked or how narrative structure has worked in this, but there are abrupt tonal shifts. Again, I don't know that they are outside the realm of what we experience in life, but there are abrupt tonal shifts. Sometimes this is a straight up satire in very much the same way that Clueless was at times like a straight up satire. But I just feel like maybe that's one of the areas in which there's just a little bit of friction.
Yeah, we should get to this later, the whole tonal thing, because it's hard. Like, there's parts I love that are so much that I can't tell. Like, when all of the kids smell their fucking hot Xerox copies, that seems like a different movie, but it's so perfect.
Or I was thinking like well, you said we're going to get to it, so we'll definitely get to it. But I think that those two things kind of go hand in hand, which is the loose narrative structure and the tonal shifting, and that
almost like it's Hot Shots, the Hot Shots of,
or like Mike said, skit show. Like that's it. Really does feel kind of like a sketch show version of this year, and I don't know what the answer is, because I think that this probably captures the feeling of the book very well, and it captures the feeling of a year very well. But there's just, when there is that lack of focus, sometimes what you lose with that focus is some of your emotionality towards the film.
We're gonna take a break. I'm gonna give Mike one more point because he called Spicoli the sketchiest character. And that means two different things. When we come back, Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
You know what that song means? It's time for Rushmore. Rushmore is typically, if you're driving around the Dakotas, dedicated to presidents. We're not a fan of presidents anymore. Let's do something different. Tonight, we're going to do the hottest...
Let's go, Biden.
Buffiest, sexiest beef chunks of man meat of 1982. We only have 4 heads, gentlemen, so you guys are going to have to duke it out to see who gets on the mountain. 4 points, of course. One special winner will go right on the mountain and get extra points if you're thinking about exactly what I'm thinking about. Greg,
Yes.
you won last week, right?
I did win last
You
week.
beat
Yeah,
Mike at ET. So,
the
Mike,
rare win.
Mike, you're going first.
Okay, the real win, as I like to call it. I think you could say it's Hot Boys, but I like men. We haven't gotten there yet, but how fucking sexy he was with his long shag hair and how thick the brows were. He was ahead of his game. You know I'm going to go straight up with Ricardo Montalban.
Eugene Levy. I thought for sure you were going to say Eugene Levy. Second City Star.
I know that Greg is going to think that this is a, I don't know, prank on him or like I'm robbing him of points or some sort of con, but
Mike.
that's the secret one. Ricardo Montalban is on the mountain.
Whoa.
Khan's a hottie.
Man, he's got his shirt open the whole time. He's got the nice like spray tan on.
Look,
Mike
you
and I
know,
have
think
famously
it's-
never seen Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, but you know why we're so excited. It's Ricardo Montalban.
it's Ricardo Montalban. You know you're sexy if you make your enemies drop to their knees and scream your name.
Or if you make all of your enemies be like, did you grease your chest? And he's just like, what grease?
Maybe.
Also, finally giving sexiness to chest hair. I really appreciate that. Just being in my group as far as sexy chest-haired men. Greg, you can't get the bonus anymore. It's
so
gone.
shocked. I'm so deeply shocked. I don't know if he's as sexy as Ricardo Montalban, but he was in a movie called Officer and Gentleman, maybe at the height of his sexy sexual powers. Richard Gere.
Richard Gere was a sex symbol in 2 different eras. This was the first one, and he's a fucking classic, guys. He's going right on.
Yeah, he does that thing that a lot of guys do, where he's got the young version of himself that's sexy, and then an older version of himself that becomes differently
Silver
sexy.
Fox.
I did the
Trivago
opposite of
sexy.
that. Sort of, I was like an awkward young man, and then I grew into a different type of awkward old man. So it can go both ways. But yeah, he's in the dress uniform in this. He's carrying folks around. 82 Richard Gere.
I remember him being one of the few people that like moms would be like, "Whew,
Mm-hmm.
moist."
Watch out.
Yeah. All right,
Watch
that's
out.
2 on, Mike. So get ready for this to be in the maybe pile.
I think it's sexiness in a completely different kind of way than these 2 gentlemen. Sometimes sexy is how you run the room, how confident you are, how you can make people laugh. And also, he had those abs back then because I think he was 20. It's Eddie Murphy
From 48 Hours?
from 48 Hours.
Yeah, I think, we talked about that movie. He was 19 or 20 when it was filmed. That's impressive besides handsomeness. Also a very good-looking guy.
Yeah, and quite a performer, clever, and personality plus in 48 Hours. Like, if his personality was not part of the equation for that movie would just have such a funky feel to it, like such an off feel.
Yeah, hard for him to hook up in that movie, but that's probably right for that movie. It should be hard for everyone in that movie to hook up.
Yeah, nobody should have that easy.
And then he's a sensitive, gentle lover boy. I like that.
I can relate.
Sexy in its own way.
We'll put him on the side for now. Greg, what do you got?
Okay. He, at this point, I think he had been in one Indiana Jones. He was in Blade Runner, which we talked about. He's got that sort of like ne'er-do-well, rebellious, maybe kind of dangerous feel. I'm not totally 100% comfortable with some of the Rick Deckard stuff, but I definitely think that Harrison Ford was serving the sort of 80s male sexuality that we're looking for.
I have a question. Did
Yeah, lay it on me.
Thanks, bud. Was this Harrison Ford's era? And counter question, did he ever have an era? Was he just always like on the back burner, despite playing all these sexy gents?
I think this was definitely his era, because this is in the middle of the Indiana Jones thing, and then
Blade Runner.
Blade
Star
Runner.
Wars.
Yeah.
So, and then Star Wars had been around at the time. So I think this was it.
And right off set, he was in low-rise denims just hammering wood. Like, I think real Harrison Ford is probably hotter than all of his characters.
Flying around in planes. Yeah. Well, Harrison Ford, part of what makes Harrison Ford the real man so hot is his sort of like disdain for Hollywood culture and for fans of Hollywood culture.
Dude was a carpenter, much like your boy Jesus Christ. Mike, what do you got?
You know what I think is sexy? Blood, violence, conquering. It's Conan the Barbarian. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger with a big old sword in his hand.
Not a lot of
See,
clothes
this
on.
is interesting because this is like I've never heard I'm probably wrong here, but I've literally never heard a woman be like, "Ooh, Arnold Schwarzenegger."
We talked about this on the T2 show where he was walking naked through a bar, and it was weird that ladies were checking him out because no girl has ever found him sexy.
Yeah, dudes find him sexy because we all wish that we could be big towers of beef that are like so super strong. But I'm not saying that no women find him attractive. I think that he is an aesthetic made for men. He's the power fantasy.
Yeah. Greg, what do you got?
Also, apparently, he's a big creep. Kurt Russell, Ryan. Kurt Russell.
Star of 1982's The Thing.
Yeah, dude. Star of 1982's The Thing. Beautiful feathered hair. Great voice. Just an absolute
Piercing
smoke
blue
show.
eyes.
Okay.
And not an evil alien, I don't think.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
We'll see.
Yeah, we're not sure.
It might turn out that he is one. Speaking of carpenters, John Carpenter directed that. So lots of hammer and nails all over this segment tonight.
Connected.
I've got Eddie Murphy, Harrison Ford, Arnold, and Kurt Russell to deal with right now. Is there anybody else that you guys think could work with those four? Oh, Mike has one.
The reason
got
for this
one.
season, he's so hot, he never wants his shirt on, and he'll even sit in a fast food-ery and argue that he should be able to keep his shirt off. It is, and I think this is the only era he could do this in. It's 1982 Sean Penn.
Now, I'm going to put that straight on because of the thick 82-ness of it.
His hair.
Do you not find him handsome, Greg?
Spicoli?
No,
Come on.
he's a butterface, but the minute he takes his shirt off, I'm like, yeah, every girl should be on this guy
He
right
looks
now.
like a... Okay. No.
Just clean your face on those washboard abs.
Greg, you got one more.
I was going to say Rob Lowe.
Okay.
Beautiful, perfect Rob Lowe.
All right. So I have got Eddie Murphy, Harrison Ford, Arnold, Kurt Russell, and Rob Lowe. I'm really trying to think about that 1982 energy. And I think that I'm going to have to go the person who screams 82 at me the most. Probably his only opportunity. A lot of these other gents have other ones, except for Arnold, who has zero other opportunities. I'm going to go with Eddie Murphy. Is that Mike?
Mike.
That was Mike, yes.
All right, your 1982 Hot Boys that I believe everyone can get behind is Ricardo Montalban, Richard Gere, Spicoli, and Eddie Murphy. When we come back, more about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Gentlemen, let's bring Cameron Crowe, that is, into the conversation along with Heckerling. How much does this movie ring true? The dialogue, the relationships, the situations. Are Crowe and Heckerling a superstar team along with all of these performances? Or is it ultimately just another teen movie?
I think it's more than just another teen movie.
It's not another teen movie.
This is
It's not another teen movie.
I go back to just how much heart this movie has, and it just seems like a more realistic depiction, in part because it embraces the awkwardness and never tries to counter it in any way or overcome it in any way. And maybe even a way in which it denies the sort of narrative neatness that I was talking about earlier is more of a mirror of real life, with the open-endedness and the non-connectedness of parts of it. So I think that, like, in terms of like being a movie that actually seems to portray the way I remember the teenage experience being, it's head and shoulders above most other movies, except for maybe some of the ones that she has also directed in the eras that come after this, for capturing the actual voice and actual feel of teenagers.
She's her own worst enemy. Mike, you are probably the person who has seen the most amount of these movies. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that you like this movie now, because so many of your favorite movies fucking pale in comparison to this movie. Sure. I know that Can't Hardly Wait and Empire Records are legendary in your mind.
Ryan, get over it. Don't forget about Get Over It.
Don't forget about Get Over It. Don't
Whatever
forget
it
about
takes.
Let's Not Forget. Don't forget about You Should Stop Thinking About That. All of these classic movies. When you see two characters, say Linda and Stacy, or really pick any two, do their conversations seem more realistic than your average Can't Hardly Wait or Get Over It?
Yeah, it is. Yes, they are still like elevated, but they're not so elevated that it's like not Laura Prepon. Laura, I forget her name. Can't Hardly Wait. The redhead in Can't Hardly Wait. She talks in such a way that it's like, oh, you went to 3 graduate schools to get your English degree, and now you're talking like you're 15 years old.
The Kevin Smith of it all.
The Kevin Smith of it all. This is the step towards that in a good way because we're in a movie.
Right.
Right? So I don't want to hear fucking farts and chuds talk about their chuds and farts, which is what real teenagers are like.
Oh, I fucking dare you guys to go hang out in a high school class and listen to how they actually talk.
Stop Fortniting all over the place.
Honestly, when I was a freshman in high school, in my science class, I sat in front of 2 girls, and I didn't have anyone to talk to because I didn't have any friends. So I would overhear what they were talking about, and I swear they had the exact kind of conversations that Phoebe Cates and Jennifer Jason Leigh have. And I remember being a kid and feeling like the one who was saying to the other one, like, you just have to have sex. Sex is the best. Sex is great. I remember being a kid and thinking, like, have you actually had sex?
Fuck
like,
you. You're full of shit.
There's just something about you that it seems like, because everybody's 16, and so I'm like,
right, we're children.
Yeah, like, is this really going on? And like, so when I hear those conversations in the movie, I feel like I do have my own experience that is so much like that.
I mean, is it, Mike? Is it too I don't know, big of a leap to say that when you first saw this, you were dumb like them, and now that you watch it, you can see how dumb they are?
That could be part of it. Also, I remember going and expecting a comedy as gold as Whatever It Takes or Can't Hardly Wait, and this just
like more
bummed me
laughs
out.
than one of those classic movies.
And this just bummed me out. Like I was like, this is dark. What the fuck is this shit? And then now, 85 years removed, I'm like, it is very funny, and it's dark, and it's not as dark as I remembered it being because now I expect it, and stuff maybe I didn't thought was funny and.
It doesn't go for nonstop laughs, but when it does go for a laugh, it achieves it, and usually it's pretty funny.
Fucking, what's non-sexy James Spader's name?
Damone?
Bradley.
Brad,
in the mirror for the 80th time in the movie trying to talk himself into breaking up with his loving girlfriend, and it just says, like, you hairy fucking pussy. And he's trying to just toughen himself up and be a man. It's just very funny. I think it is. It's like there's just subtly funny stuff
He's
that
like,
if you're
I'm
a dumb teen.
Successful single dude, you're like
you're none of those things.
You're not even a senior in high school yet. What does it mean to be successful?
I don't know what other opportunity we're going to have to talk about Brad, who grew up to be Judge Reinhold.
Hell yeah,
that's
dude.
his name. Thank you.
My wife and I got into an argument when we were watching this movie, and I don't know if it's because I'm bad at watching movies. She's bad, and you guys can definitely say that she's bad at watching movies because she's not giving you points tonight, or if it's just from like when we started watching this movie. But is Brad cool? Was Brad cool? What is this movie trying to get you to think about Brad?
I think to the last segment, to this segment, what makes this movie great is the Brad of it all. In another movie, Brad just would be the star of the movie. And he's not. Right. Instead, his little sister is. Brad, and he has heroic moments. He's mostly douchey, shitty moments, but is he a good older brother? Yes.
Yes, he is.
Like,
oh, yeah.
But no, is he cool, though? Is he cool to the school?
Oh, the school fucking loves him for some reason. Everybody just says, hi, Brad. Or is that just in his head?
Do you know why the school,
no.
How you can tell the school loves him? At one point, he gives somebody a windmill high five while walking through a parking lot. That's cinematic
that's cool
language
as
right
fuck.
there.
Okay, like let's look at the facts. He is tall.
Fact.
This
and
is an
tall
environment
is equal to handsome.
For whatever reason, I guess because it's the 80s, this is an environment where you work matters to kids, and he works at like the best place. And he appears to be some sort of like manager or assistant manager there, which speaks to his success.
Yeah, I can get you a job.
He already has a girlfriend, which is like weird currency when you're in high school for like getting other cool things. It's like, wait, do you already have a girlfriend? But I think the movie reveals how he is like deeply uncool, and how you can be inside that experience and be a cool person and then constantly just humiliate and dunk on yourself in
what about
myriad
this?
ways.
What about the movie? What about Brad as a sequel to Ferris Bueller? How Ferris Bueller in your junior year or the beginning of your senior year, you're the coolest kid ever, and that was Brad. And now we get to see the last quarter of your senior year and going into real life, and how fucking high school coolness doesn't matter. Does that reflect Brad?
I guess, but Ferris would never grow up to be Brad. Maybe Cameron would, but Ferris would never be like, do you know what's cool is my job.
I think he would for sure grow up to be somebody who wasn't very successful. I mean, isn't he like he's like peaks in high school guy. He's known for having like the best burger flipping job, and
right.
He
And
dates a
loses
girl
that.
there. Yeah, like he's well on his way, I think, to being kind of a mess of an older man who constantly looks back and was like, I had it all. You know what I kept thinking of? I kept thinking like he turns into Kevin Spacey in American Beauty.
Oh no!
And because American Beauty, the time he's looking back to is flipping burgers, driving around in his car, like having a girlfriend. This exact movie, I think, is what Kevin Spacey's character is thinking about in that.
But see, part of the reason why I love this movie is because Brad's moment of throwing the pirate hat and eating the disgusting fish in there and then throwing the rest out. That's, first of all, it's perfect setting of stakes. We know how big of a deal that is for Brad to do. Although the three of us would do it no matter what. We throw fucking fish and chips out our car window all the time.
Every day.
I buy them just to throw them out.
And I think that like that's his growth moment. And I do think that like that sort of says that I now realize what is stupid and what isn't about my present and my past.
I think before that moment, if that is that moment, because I don't know if all the characters get that, like, now I've grown, it's anybody in high school who gives advice gets a comeuppance or shown to be an ass clown.
Yeah.
All the people who are like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, is fine, a normal person. So I think if you had to say it as one thesis, it's that, is if you're a child, don't tell other kids how the fucking world works.
And
You know what this-
at about like the hour mark, both Rat and Stacy are both look at their mentors, and they're like, this guy's a douche. Fuck this person.
Dude,
and the world does that to Brad.
If this were a modern movie, a lot of these kids would have like YouTube channels, and they would be dispensing advice constantly about like how to fit in and how to be popular, and it would be the same thing. Like, just shut up, dude. You don't know anything.
Mike, you know that book that you always talk about, The Year of Living Biblically?
Yes.
I
do talk about that a lot.
Do you think a book, The Year of Living YouTubically, and just only going by the advice of YouTube?
All right. All we need is 20 patrons, and Mike starts the year of living YouTubically, and I'll write about it. And you know what? I'll even YouTube it.
Control a year of Mike's life.
I've been trying to make that happen for fucking 30 years.
Seriously. I've been doing it. When you started talking about how, like, fuck your mentors, I started, fuck the kids that are older than you that keep telling you what to do. I started sweating a little bit.
I was going to realize.
Speaking of the pirate restaurant, this movie starts, ends, and spends a ton of time in malls, fast food places, and other jobs for teens. So it's definitely a movie about teenage employment. But to what end? Is this a part that strikes out as like weirdly 82? And what is it about this movie that like keeps giving us these kids at jobs?
Well, back then kids knew they had a bootstrap, and if they wanted a car, earn a fucking paycheck. And these days kids just get it from their parents or their YouTube subscribers.
You're gonna make the best grandpa in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, like, it does, I think, harken back to a time where being a kid with a job gave you an awful lot of freedom. Mm-hmm. And our parents and parents of the generation right before and of our generation, you still got a lot more freedom, and because of that there was also more responsibility. And so these kids really
great freedom.
These kids really do like love it and think about their jobs an awful lot. But I think that honestly within the movie is more of a mirror of 80s culture than it is of actual like teen culture. I could not imagine one teen walking up to another and being like, I hate the way they're doing things over at my burger place. I want to work for your burger place. Like, have you seen a teenager at their job? They're just like staring off into space.
Yeah.
You're lucky if
Trying
you
to not get caught smoking pot.
They're recording their YouTube videos about what an influencer they are.
Gucci, could I please get my burger over here, man?
Well, I'm so fascinated. Is there even such a thing as teen culture, or when teens were invented in the 40s, is every 15 years, is it a completely different kind of culture? Because in the 60s, they don't hang out with the soda jerks anymore, and like then they don't hang out with the fucking
soda jerks.
Does it just always evolve to the point like now teens hanging out IRL? That's fucking weird. Why would you ever go meet your friends in a parking lot or at their job? I'm going to just Snapchat them all night.
I think that's such a good point. Like in the history of teenagers, which as Mike pointed out is not that, like, the age has always been around. You didn't just go from 10 to 20.
Yeah, but
No,
you
it's
worked
like-
in a factory for like 7 years by the time you were a teenager.
But
But
Decemberists wrote a lot of songs about 1800s teenagers.
We only have pop culture to go with about how teenagers worked. And teenagers, like, even in this movie that was written by a teenager while he watched teenagers be teenagers, there's still always this feeling of this is half what teenagers are like, and this is half what 30-year-olds think teenagers are like. And so many of them have to have a job because that's what they think teenagers need to have. I remember talking when I was 19, 20, 21, 22 about having to be at work. Like, when I was a kid in high school, there was one kid who had a job, and it was in a coal mine, and he was poor as fuck. Everybody else was just lounging.
Hi, my name is Mike.
Oh, this is him, by the way.
Does anybody want some coal? I have a little bit left over in my lungs.
All these fucking environmentalists started early screaming at me.
I mean, when I was in high school, like I worked at like KB Toys, but I couldn't imagine.
That's dope.
I couldn't imagine taking anything other than just like the paycheck from that. Like, I liked to hang out with my friends behind the counter and chat with them, but like, I guess, you know, part of it is when you are that age, it's not just the freedom of having the job. When you go to the job, you are there, and it's like a whole little business run by children, basically. Like when I worked at
Which
KB,
is how toy stores should work.
yeah, like the manager at KB was like 20 years old,
Right.
and he was the oldest person
king.
I had ever personally encountered. I couldn't believe how old somebody was, that they could be more than a teenager. And then everybody else was just like 15, 16, and 17, and we ran a little store. And like that's the most freedom we ever had in our lives, and we abused that like the hell out of it.
But
As you should.
Go ahead, Mike.
I think it is the freedom, and you abuse it, and that's how you learn. Like, you can steal this much from the till, don't steal that much. But also
Steal
your
stock. Don't steal any money.
Yeah,
Just
well,
steal
stocks.
the
Take
the
on that
stuff.
shit.
You take one toy, you put one toy in the trash. It all evens up.
Dude, I think we're gonna be doubling our losses.
But it's you have the freedom, so you can also like go out after, and your parents are like, oh, they still work, but there's no real adults. You, like you said, Greg, your parents aren't around, your teachers aren't around, maybe your normal friends aren't around, so you're carving out for the first time who you actually might be away from all these links that think they know who you are.
That is true. But in addition to that, I also think that this is the thing that relates the Hamiltons to each other the most, is that they had put all of their like hopes and like feeling of worth into one thing for Stacey Boys, for Brad Job. And then over the course of 1 year, we see that like that's not true. There is more to life than what we were just putting that into.
What does he think
diversify.
is going to come out of this job? I don't like. Why is he so committed to it?
I think he's just a go-getter, and I think that's a fine attitude to have, but you have to realize, man, you're a fucking senior going to college.
But I think it's also then when college mattered less. Say it was the 80s, you'd be like, I was an assistant manager in high school, and some guy's like, run my car dealership. And then you could be like, I was 22 running a car dealership. Somebody's going to be like, run my oil refinery.
Right. Become my president. And then I also think that that's, like all great movies are the two romantic leads coming together. I think that's what happens with Spicoli and Brad at the end. No podcast about Fast Times has ever talked about Spicoli less than we have, but Brad and Spicoli coming together at the end to sort of like, we have both reached this thing where we're both together and what we think about life is, I think, a major part of the movie. And Spicoli's grown a little bit, and Brad has realized, fuck this shit.
Yeah, and that's a different kind of growth. Also, talk about the Kevin Smith of it all, being a big Clerks head as a kid. Did not connect that. It was like, oh, the end of Clerks is just the end of fucking Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
The end of most movies from this period on are like have these just like dance numbers that kind of see us out of the movie.
And then there's another end to this ending, but we'll get to that later when we go to awards. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, the
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com, and it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action, and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review. Bye.
It's time for the 5. Every season, we take a look at 5 archetypes of the cinematic and literary world and talk about who would be best suited, if this archetype was performed in 1982. Hell, some of them were performed in 1982. But we're going to do it a step better by putting stars in there. People like stars more than character actors. We're going to start with Danny Ocean, Greg. Who is Danny Ocean to you?
To me, Danny Ocean is the man that always has a plan. He's quick talking, he's charming, and he's very handsome. He can get the job done, and he sees everything coming, and he has a contingency for when that comes.
Could there be a less attractive Danny Ocean?
Could there be a less attractive
Not
Danny
less than
Ocean?
George Clooney. I just mean, like, could there be an unattractive Danny Ocean?
No, I don't think so, because it's that's part of what helps him beguile everybody, and you never see him coming because you're sort of like off put by his charm and his handsomeness. And we know this man is handsome because he was just put up on the Mount Rushmore of handsome folks. My Danny Ocean for 1982 is Eddie Murphy.
Wow. Who was not the Danny Ocean of Tower Heist, but was in that Ocean's 11-like movie.
Well, there you go. There you go.
That
But
Danny
yeah,
Ocean
always
was
has a
Ben
plan.
Stiller.
Was he not?
Can talk his way out of any situation. Doesn't need the gun, but if he's got the badge, then he can make it work. Appears strong when he's weak, appears weak when he's strong. Very clever.
Mike, would you agree with Greg in that Danny Ocean is always making waves?
Yes. I would agree with Greg saying that. And Greg said a
for
lot,
me.
so I don't know what else I could say about Danny Ocean. He's very good at getting the band together, and that's what I'm.
And
everything
also,
Greg
I think
said,
it's important,
ditto.
too, that, like, they said to themselves at some point, I will never fucking work with this person again.
Right.
Yeah.
They say Commander, no, and that's why mine is Captain James T. Kirk.
William Shatner?
William Shatner.
I'm sorry, of the film Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan?
Yep. He is our
Shats.
Danny Ocean. He's got a case of the Shats.
And I want to make it clear that Greg said an actor, but Mike said a character, right?
That's fine, right?
No, it's fine. I just want to make it clear that Greg is not talking about the character from 48 Hours, and Mike is not talking about William Shatner.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that being said, Mike, you picked somebody from Star Trek, so our Danny Ocean is Eddie Murphy.
The last time I picked somebody from Star Trek, it really worked out.
Oh,
for
you
me.
got
I know, it
extra
worked out
points for
really
that.
well.
It's such a
Man,
weird
I'm still
game
so
we play.
surprised by
Now I'm staring at the rest of my Star Trek list and freaking out.
Whoa.
Mike, who is Scout to you, and what Star Trek character would play Scout?
I think Scout is naive, but has a heart of gold, is going to make some mistakes, is going to say some weird shit, but often will go against the rest of society to do what is right and sees the truth of the matter more than other people, and she'll get kicked in the mud for it and be fine.
I mean, when you look at your Mike's favorite movies, the Amblin
Yes.
movies, the E.T., the Goonies, the Monster Squads, aren't these just teams of scouts?
They're all just a bunch of little
Maybe
Eagle
a gem
Scouts.
or two, but mostly scouts, right?
Yes.
All right, who's
And
your
that's-
scout for 1982?
Why my Scout is, and remember that he is only 4 years old here, it's Roy Batty. He sees the truth of society and fights the weight of the world to do what is right.
Do you dream, first of all, of Electric Sheep, and second of all, of Atticus Finch reading bedtime stories to Roy Batty all curled up in bed?
I do. And that's what makes me go full on Judge Reinhold in the bathroom.
I'm glad we got a new term. All right, Roy Batty is for Mike. Greg, who's your scout?
Scout is a precocious girl child trying to make her way through a world that has completely lost sense, and does it maybe with the guidance of an older male, but does not have the full weight of like parental guidance.
She has Cal.
And that reminds me of Annie from the hit show Annie.
Little
The
orphan
Scout'll
Annie.
come out.
Little orphan Annie, trying to make her way in the world today, and it's taken everything she's got.
All right, so Annie, the lead singer of the song from Cheers, and Roy Batty from Blade Runner.
Yes.
This is quite the pickle. But I'm going to give it to the person who picks the ginger. It's going to Greg.
The Scout of
GNG.
Ginger.
Greg, have you ever heard of a character named Yoda?
I have heard of a character named Yoda. His name means warrior in Yiddish, and that's something I know. But who is Yoda? Who is the Yoda? More than anything else, is a weird little being with understanding of the world and its spiritual angle and what else is really out there, which is a force and that force has a will, and that we have to sort of understand it. Who else tells us this? Tagaina, I don't know how you say her name, Zelda Rubinstein from Poltergeist, who
It's not
knows,
Tagaina. Let's agree on that.
who
Vagina.
I honestly don't know how you say her name, but she's an odd little lady who knows about Ghost Force and tells the family basically everything they need to know to understand what's going on with the Poltergeist.
She's
a
very
movie
short.
I have not seen. She's pretty short. She's pretty short, and she's honestly, her head looks a lot like Yoda's head. Like they've got very similar builds.
Sparse hair.
And she actually talks about the Force, but she means like the force of evil spirits, but I think it's much the same thing.
I also love the attitude of both of them. Like, it's just the mentor character, but also this specific mentor, Greg, that you're hitting on is like, oh, you guys are in danger. Fuck you, man. We don't care. Okay, fine. Your funeral. Like, I'll just walk
Later.
away then. That's cool.
I'll talk to you guys when you're dead.
Well, any
I have that
good
power.
mentor and teacher knows you can't slam your students' heads into it. You got to give them what they are. They're going to trip and fall on their face, maybe die a little, and then they'll learn.
And also both make this noise. I mean, why do you ever give Zelda Rubinstein a character's name in a movie when her real name is that? Just call her
Always going
Zelda.
to be better.
Mike, what do you got?
She's got you covered.
Yeah, it's short, it's weird looking, it's mentor, it's full of wisdom nobody wants to listen to. It's the world weary. I've been there before, but I talk in such a funny way, nobody's going to listen to me. In 1982, I can't think of anybody who does that more than Frenchie in Grease 2.
Okay.
She tries to teach
Mike.
all the young pink ladies and young T-birds the right way to be in the world,
Mike,
and they
what
just
are you
won't
doing,
listen.
bud? You're sacrificing so much of your advantage.
I'm going to let everybody know there was a version of this where everybody was a character from Grease 2. And I said, don't do that, Mike. The world's
but at
not
least
that
we got
dark.
the one.
Well, this one, I mean it. I think she's so Yoda.
Who played Frenchie? Was it Soccer Channing? Was she back?
No, it wasn't Stockard Channing. It was the gal from Shining Time Station.
Oh.
She was in Grease 1 as well. She's the one who dyed her hair pink. That's Frenchie, of course.
Right.
She
I'll look
actually
up her
plays
name.
Frenchie in the first one, right? Isn't she one of the few people to cross over to the second movie?
It's her, the nerd Eugene, and the teachers are the only people who are in the back.
Hello, I'm the nerd Eugene. Mike, thank you for only giving us one Grease 2 response on this. Willy Wonka, what does that archetype mean to you?
It's whimsical, out of step with the world, but you realize they get it more than anybody else does. Hangs out with kids a lot, leads them into danger, but doesn't like it. It's for the kids' own good. They'll learn, right?
But I was a little nervous to have Yoda and Willy Wonka in the same one. What are the differences there? Because it's not just mentor, right?
I think it's not just meant that there's more danger to Willy than Yoda. There's definitely height to Willy. I think Yoda wants so badly to be a mentor, and Willy Wonka kind of falls into it.
They both have a cane.
They do both have a cane.
Okay,
Just
specifically ask for differences. But thank you.
Shit.
Yeah, and like I like this idea of, you know what? It's not my point. Mike, who do you got for Willy Wonka?
It is E.T., the Pied Piper of it all.
Why?
Well, all the reasons said. He leads kids astray. He's also very into candy. He's weird. He people are
Does love
scared of him.
chocolate.
People are scared of him at first, but then they're like, actually, this guy's got it right.
Every
He
time
gives
you
people
shine,
a gift they don't understand at first.
every time you shine
Every
a
time he
light
takes
on
2
Willy
steps,
Wonka, he goes. "Ah!"
Anytime he takes 2 steps forward, he just falls down.
Yeah.
Dresses like a hot ass babe. All right, E.T. is Mike's Willy Wonka. Greg,
I think part of what Mike was missing there is I think you
Son
have
of a
to
bitch.
have once had the love and soul and whimsy of a child, but now that has been taken from you, but you try to get it back, right?
because E.T.
And so for
continues
me-
to have that.
For me, it's Keys from E.T., Peter Coyote, because he is the one who, as a kid, he's like Elliot and he dreams, but then he gets pulled into this system that kind of like he loses that. But when he finds E.T. and he finds Elliot, he finds that again, and then he and Elliot form this like cross-generational bridge of this still having whimsical love. And then that is like, and he sort of transfers that, Keys sort of transfers that onto Elliot in the same way that Willy Wonka transfers like the factory onto Charlie.
That is interesting, but what I was sort of going for with Willy Wonka is sort of like a mortal god, like brings him into a world that he themselves created.
Like Dr. Eldon
Yes, or E.T.
Mike,
And Didi Khan was Frenchie.
But see,
everybody wanted to know.
The reason E.T. doesn't seem to work I don't think works, is because he's as lost as the kids. He's like out of place himself.
Still changes that world into his world faster than anybody else.
And Willy Wonka's not lost.
That's true. He calls himself Willy Wonka. All right, Greg, tell me what Miranda Priestley means.
So Miranda Priestley is from The Devil Wears Prada, and so I guess what I took from her is sort of what culture has labeled like an unlikable woman, CEO, manager. And then all the things that we probably like prize in a male leader we find distasteful in her. But then also, I can't think about Miranda Priestley without also thinking about this second part of her character, which is like her home life, where she is deeply unhappy and where she is like not as free and not as independent, and sort of seems to be under the thumb of her husband. So I that duality there, which is like her unlikable, high-powered woman persona, which even her unlikability is like a little suspect. And then
that wasn't Stanley Tucci, was it? Am I just thinking of Julie and Julia?
He's in it, but he's not her husband. He is her
designer.
Designer, yeah.
Right.
The Tooch. So who's an unlikable woman of 1982? Margaret Thatcher, who also in her, if the Crown is to be believed, had like sort of like she went home from a day of being the prime minister and doing, frankly, let's say it, evil, being bad, and then she would go home and like cook up dinner for her family while they waited for her to like be done with dinner. And so still she was still like sort of the domestic, she was still in charge of domestic duties, even though she was herself the Iron Lady.
God, that's so fucking weird. It's just like, oh wait, a different Meryl Streep character? That's gonna get you some points. Just thinking about Dr. Doom coming home and being like, all right, is breakfast for dinner okay? That's what I'm in the mood for. Mike, who's your Miranda Priestley?
I think Miranda Priestley, aggro boss, real direct, rubs people the wrong way, but they respect it because she gets the job done. And then by the end, you see she does care about her protege, and that's why mine is Nick Nolte from 48 Hours.
And Mike, before we started recording, you were regaling us with all of your impression talent. So can we hear Nick Nolte do some lines from The Devil Wears Prada?
Get me Armani on the phone.
That's all I need.
Where's Versace?
I want two. Get me two Armani.
Get me
not
two.
Just one. I want two.
I gotta give this to Mike because blonde, and
True.
I think terrible, icy, like no emotionless asshole. But maybe someday you might find that heart of gold if you dig deep enough. Whereas I don't know.
You don't
if that's
think you
the
can
case with
find the
Margaret
heart
Thatcher.
of gold in Margaret Thatcher, Ryan?
I'm not sure.
No,
You don't think you can
heartless.
find that because of all the bad stuff she did? Is
Yeah.
that why? Okay.
Despite going home and making her children dinner, which she didn't want to do, she probably tried to make a law where you didn't have to cook children dinner.
Maybe if one of those kids learned how to cook, she'd fucking enforce less disgusting laws in UK.
Who's hotter, Miranda Priestley or Jason Priestley?
Miranda.
Greg?
Hotter, Miranda Priestley or Jason Priestley? I guess, yeah, Miranda Priestley.
Yeah, I just don't believe Jason Priestley will step on my nuts the way I want him to.
Oh.
That's all from me on that one. That's everything I needed from the end of a segment. When we come back, more about Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Well, that is very, very funny. Or very sad. And perhaps now you have something to think about. Or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody. Keep watching them movies.
Gentlemen, is this the most 80s movie of all time or the most timeless? Can you be both?
I think it's definitely the most 80s movie of all time. It takes place in a mall. The fashions are totally 80s. The movie's approach to nudity is like the most 80s thing about it. Like, there does not have to be nudity in this movie. You could find so many ways around it.
Can you imagine titties in Stranger Things? That's what this movie is like.
Is the
Stranger Things
Demogorgon
came back
having 9.5?
I mean, And that was just a mark of the time. Like, if you were making a movie in the 80s, it had to be, like, G-rated for you not to throw in some boob action in there. It was basically expected.
Does that feel like a healthier attitude to sex versus the very sanitized Hollywood we have these days that seems scared of any sort of sex, where people freaked out over the 4-second Eternals one man wasn't lying on top of a woman?
Man, Karina Longworth is going through the erotic 80s right
Yes.
now, 12 episodes, and maybe you wouldn't think of the 80s as being erotic, maybe more exploitative, but it was just horny people going to see horny movies that gave them what they wanted. Like, it didn't have to be porn. It was just like adults being like, sex, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say that it doesn't feel so super overly exploitative in this movie. It does feel very naturalistic, except for the most iconic.
I mean, does Heckerling
that's
have her
on
cake and eat it
purpose.
too because of how she creates the fantasy of Phoebe Cates, but still
Yes.
gets Phoebe Cates?
I mean, she told Phoebe Cates, like, this is not going to be a big deal. Don't worry. It's going to be over. It's going to be 1 second of the movie. And there's no world in which it's just 1 second of the movie. It's like one of the biggest shots in film history. And so
This is pre-VHS. I don't know if she fucking could know that was going to happen.
I mean, the legend is that all VHS
Yeah.
stores, rentals
Right.
at that time, like that scene was blurry because there was no internet porn, so you just rewound until you were done.
But I do think that it is a little bit like having your cake and eating it too, like, because she is in that scene, she's making a comment about, like, weirdly hypersexualized, completely unreal, like, beer commercial ladies, basically. And at the same time, she is actively creating the fantasy while sort of lampooning it.
But
And
I don't know if you can not make the fantasy without. You can't lampoon the fantasy without making it cinematically.
You can,
It
if when
would
she
feel
opens up her top, instead of her boobs, it's headlights that are coming
It's
right
headlights,
towards her.
Dumb
Hell
and
yeah,
Dumber
dude.
reference. There we go.
It would just be a lot more toothless. And Dumb and Dumber, a lot of things, no teeth.
Yeah, and what didn't become as iconic is Brad, if you go by my theory, the former Ferris Bueller, getting totally walked in on the toilet and being embarrassed. You know, that part isn't included in the iconicness of the scene.
Because the artist can't control what people will do with their art. It's clear that in Heckerling's head, these two things are equal. And then, except though I did also read that the blowjob scene that was in the cafeteria, originally they were going to both be naked in a hot tub. And they couldn't clear that. And one of the producers said, can we just film that anyway and not put it in the movie? Gross.
I read that there was the producer had a real problem with that scene, and Heckerling was like, "Oh, we're gonna have to cut it." And he said, "Reshoot it. They should be sucking those carrots way sexier than they actually are."
So he didn't get the point of the movie.
What do you mean he? You don't. I didn't say it was a boy. Who knows?
That's
It
a
could've-
producer, Ryan. In the 80s?
Also, that said that about the sexiness of sucking
Yeah.
carrots. That's probably gonna be a dude.
But everything we've said about this, these all are stories that feel like they would only come out about 1980s cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just reinforces the overall 1980ness of it all.
Yeah, but
I
like,
think
82.
the if we're to Devil's Advocate, which came out in the 90s,
Good
the
point.
timelessness of it is the kids, what they're going through, and how what's false versus what's not false, and how you have to find your own truth. Like that is going to be every generation growing up.
I totally agree. And to go against, what we were talking about Roger Ebert, what Roger Ebert said it wasn't sexy enough. Like Stacy trying to find that light in the baseball dugout, just to have something to focus on. That's pretty timeless. That light did not have a mohawk and was singing Pat Benatar. That's like
so there's again the themes are timeless. The set dressings are 80s because there are
The
4
three
Pat
Benatar.
Benatar characters.
I think just what we're highlighting here is that these are not oppositional forces within a
Right,
movie.
right.
And that's part of like what the thrust of the show, right? Is that you can get something that is totally emblematic of the year which it comes from, but for it to be elevated to movie of the year status, it has to also be timeless. And that's a way in which this movie is very much in consideration for movie of the year because it does achieve both of those things.
it's working with both hands.
It's so wild that the Spicoli character would be one. I'm sorry, Spicoli. You'd be able to look at him and be like, well, that's just 82. But then he is James Franco in Pineapple Express. He is not just because Stranger Things in the 80s, but the long-haired kid who always plays the same character. He also played that character in American Vandal. He also played that character in Booksmart. Like this long-haired stony dude is also very timeless.
I mean,
And
I've heard that there's no The Dude without Spicoli.
I could
in
see
Big
that.
Lebowski. Just that, like when did as a nation we knew what the Valley Voice, this one tiny county, that's adjacent to Los Angeles, we all knew how they talked. That was because of him.
That's just like your opinion, man.
We've already hit on this, but I want to get to it one last time after everything we said. Is this movie a lot more meta and self-aware than it is remembered for? And based on the whole, is it 80s, is it timeless? Now, looking at this movie in 2022, what actually is it remembered for?
I think that it's definitely way more meta than it is remembered for, that it is as much a commentary on movies about this age group as it is a great version of it. It feels to me like it is remembered as a kind of raunchy sex romp, and I think that that's why watching it is kind of jarring, because that public perception is just like, it's not borne out except for this one part that is making a comment on really those types of movies, and yet somehow I think that like Spicoli and Phoebe Cates taking off her top are all that remain in the consciousness for most people about this movie.
People are dumb.
And people are dumb, and in this regard, they're exceptionally
you
dumb.
can only
because
give so much.
This movie has so much more to offer, including a meta commentary about high school movies, many of which hadn't even come out yet. Like, this is satirizing
that's
movies
the
that were going
thing.
to come out 10 years,
Yes, I was gonna
20
say
years
that.
later.
It's
It
the
can't be
Tristram
remembered-
Shandy of high school movies.
Yeah, it can't be remembered as a meta commentary if none of the movies came out yet.
Before we get out of here, I want to. We talked about jokes that don't fit. I want to talk about two that very much did. My wife is a teacher. I was in high school. There's two jokes that I really want to go over. Spicoli getting dressed out by Mr. Hand right when they met, and he just turns his head, ignoring him, and says, "Hey, I know that dude."
Yeah.
That's the most high school thing that I've ever seen in a movie.
And you know what guy he's referring to, because that guy's like, hey, this guy's been stoned since 3rd grade. You know it's that guy.
And the other one is freaky looking guy from Ghost, who teaches Patrick Swayze how to touch.
Oh, is he the pizza delivery man?
No.
He's also in Last Boy Scout?
The pizza delivery man is, of course, Taylor Negron, the villain from The Last Boy Scout. Thank you, Mike, for bringing up The Last Boy Scout. But no, the guy who takes them to the morgue.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mr. Vargas.
Mr. Vargas, I love high school movies. They have a monkey in a cage in the classroom. The budget's on these.
They go to a morgue and they
Read about it. He was based on a real teacher that Cameron Crowe had who would do this shit.
Right.
take students to a morgue.
Yeah, he was a nut.
Everything you need to know about teaching high school is in one line, where he walks into the class and says, man, I'm drinking caffeine. Guess I better switch to Sanka. And then like sort of shrugs and smiles. And you can feel him expecting the entire class to uproariously laugh, and he gets nothing. And
What
that
is
is what
Sanka?
teaching is.
Decaf coffee.
Oh.
Yeah, this weird 80s thing.
If I don't know if this is the time for this, I just don't know where. One of my favorite jokes, if we're doing that, and feels very high school, because the kids, when Spicoli is hanging out with the football star's little brother is nervous about being around an older guy and goes, "Bo Derek's tits? I like sex."
I like
When
sex,
they're
dude. When he says "I like sex," that's one of the funniest lines. I mean,
Lulled.
that's a very meta line to me. Like,
Yes.
that's like what characters are always saying in throwaway scenes is some variation of "I like sex,"
And he's like 12.
and it's like, you
very
don't know what
funny.
sex is, dude. You have
You've
no
heard the
idea.
word sex. You probably looked up sex in the encyclopedia, but other than that, you have no idea.
Speed round.
All right, gentlemen, you do not have to say your name to answer
Mike.
these. What
Yeah.
character do you find yourself being bummed when it's on them? Who do you miss when they're gone?
I miss Jennifer Jason Leigh when she's not on the screen, because I just feel like she's so present and so believable as a young person trying to figure out the world. So I would definitely say that I would miss her when she's not there. And I guess the guy, the ticket salesman,
Yes.
Damone.
I was kind of fine when he wasn't around.
You know what Damone's first name
oh.
is, Mike?
It's Mike.
Yeah, it's fucking
Boo.
Mike.
I was going to say the other
Boo.
ticket salesman. I guess it's the two of them together. When they're in other scenes with other people, interesting thing happens. But when it's the Rat and Dabone together, maybe because the Rat and he's the only one. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. Mark. When Mark did not become a star, and maybe this is why, like, when it's just the two of them together, it's the most lifeless the movie is. And he's supposed to have a similar arc to Jennifer Jason Leigh, but man, does she blow him out of the water.
Are the girls the most interesting characters in this teen romp, Mike?
They might just be, Ryan.
Where's the skeeziest place you've had sex?
Central Park, library, outside.
New
Huntington
York Central
Beach.
Park? The Central Park?
The Central Park in Huntington Beach.
Yikes. Oh, okay.
I am 100% sure it's somewhere in one of your houses, Ryan. There's like a couch that you haven't owned for a really long time.
Spider couch?
Yeah. So
You fucked the spider.
It's-
The way that you said that wasn't like throughout my past, but currently. One of the houses I own currently.
Yeah,
you've had
you
sex
very
with.
rare. You know your
I
skeezy house,
appreciate
Ryan.
that. Who are the three of us in this movie?
Oh no.
I'm in movies like this, there's always some kids who are just in the background, and they're not even the dorks. Like, they're not the cool kids in the movie. They're not like the iconic kids, and they're not even the dorks. They're like not present. They don't get names.
Oh, so you're Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, so that was me for sure. Like,
Greg,
I was
you
just
don't even think you're the guy that goes to Brad and says, "Hey man, can I get a job over at your place?"
no.
That's who I would have said Greg is.
If you ask most people I went to high school with, did I really go to high school with them? They would be like, no.
I
We
have
don't know who
that
that guy is.
Who are you? They just see a blur in front of them.
If you ask anybody I went to high school with who was not in orchestra band, they have never heard of me. Mike, who are you?
Who am I? I'm going to say I'm not my namesake. I guess I'm closest to the rat.
Okay.
'Cause I will also not be a star.
And you both have to tell me who I am, and I will give you points if I'm insulted or complimented too much.
I think you are. Spicoli has a friend. I believe it's played by the guy who was supposed to be Marty McFly.
Eric Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz.
He does
the
have red
redheaded
hair.
skateboarder.
Good job, Mike.
There is a guy.
And hot.
There's a guy who's like two guys. I don't know if you remember this guy, Ryan. He's like two different guys sitting next to himself. And there's a whole
What?
scene where I guess the humor is that there's this guy twice. I think you're that guy.
Fuck you, Greg.
Mike.
Fuck you, Mike. Is Mike Damone the male Natasha Lyonne?
Dude,
No.
their voice is the same. Their mannerisms are the
They got
same.
that whole like, hey.
The way they hunch their shoulders when they talk, cockroach. It's like a big cockroach.
They're both from like 1950s, 40s
Yeah,
New York.
exactly.
yeah, seriously. He even wears like the newsman's cap.
I'm from the East Coast in 1950s. I happen to be in California in the 1980s. Ultimately, and be fucking honest here, you two knuckleheads, is Mr. Hand an amazingly committed teacher?
Overly committed. He's almost Mr. Rooney committed.
You keep waiting for him to like go too far, but the thing he does that ultimately is going too far is he makes Spicoli learn about American history.
No, there's
Which so did Veronica Vaughn in the documentary Billy Madison.
such a hottie. Do you know what's a bullshit is that he rips up Spicoli's whole schedule because he's a little late the first day of class. Like,
I think that Mr. Hand knew in that moment I went too far. And now I
Yeah.
have to help this kid through the
I'll
semester.
double down the rest.
I could just
But
see
I
him
also-
saying, like, why did I do that? That was crazy.
You
But-
as a teacher, you do
Oh,
that
been there as a
sometimes.
teacher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, ooh.
I body checked a kid, and then I was like, wait, we're all joking. Right?
Hey, we're all joking over here. I'm Natasha Lyonne.
cockroach.
Heckerling was told to remove Damone's dick in the pool house scene, but added it back years later for the Criterion copy. Do you think that she called the actor before that and told him?
Nope.
I'm putting your
She pulled a
dick
real
back
Mike
in.
DeBone move.
That is very Mike Damone. The head of Universal at the time tried to get David Lynch to direct the movie. Would that have been better?
It would be horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that self-awareness would have become like more and more apparent as it went on, and just
Oh, you're
more and
fucking me
more
up right now.
horrible.
What kind of tiny disturbing person would live in the pool cleaner?
Zelda Rubinstein.
Like, it'd just be like, ah!
Zelda Rubinstein for
Would
sure.
be Zelda.
Allegedly, he sent it back with a note that says, "This is very funny. Not my thing." All right, that's the end of the speed round. When we come back, we're going to give this movie awards, recommendations, and find out who is the winner of the Fast Times episode. We're here with the awards. Did anybody do the research as to how many Oscar nominations Fast Times received?
0.
Let's
I
say
read-
0, right?
I read that we may never know for sure.
Oh, fucking.
Lost to history.
Those are the
Yeah.
weirdest websites. Just like, I don't know. All right, well, we're first going to start with recommendations. Greg, if you liked or did not like, or if you're just a Greg, what should you watch after Fast Times?
The movie I kept thinking about was Licorice Pizza, because it's also about trying to figure things out. It's also sort of like this really like not very narratively focused
Fairly
movie.
structure free.
Yeah, and feels like it's capturing a time. The one part I keep going back to Licorice Pizza though is there's a very awkward part with and I can't remember the actor's name, but he's a guy that's like in the movie he owns like he owns a sushi restaurant.
Yeah.
And he's like these
John
scenes
Michael
are,
Higgins.
Yes.
Yeah, these scenes are so awkward and awful. So I wonder if I will continue to recommend Licorice Pizza, but it's as a white person, maybe it's easy for me to just like sort of X those out of my recollection of the movie. But in every other way, this movie like captured that feeling for me.
Isn't it shocking that kind of scene isn't in this movie?
Yeah. There's no, I mean, all of those like caricatures from the John Hughes movies that would come out 5 to 7 years later, those aren't here really.
Because there's so much more heart to this movie. Because this is a loving, beautiful movie of like made by good people.
People who like people. Yeah, I love Licorice Pizza, but I would just say, like, in the future, PTA or any other directors, like, even if you think that you have the reason for doing that John Michael Higgins scene with a horrifically offensive Japanese accent or whatever accent, it took so much attention from the rest of your movie. How about that being enough of a reason to cut it? You know, he said, like, that's what it was like back then, or this was a real thing that happened to me. Cut it anyway.
I would cut it now. Like seriously, go back in. Like just take it out now. Yeah, like because like I'm not sure. Like I couldn't make the recommendation without saying that because I can't. That is like an undigested part of that movie. I can't come to terms with it, and so I don't know, man. Maybe think about excising it. It's cool.
I also think as a nation, as a world, we should steer back into recommendation doesn't mean I'm condoning literally every fucking second that's in this thing.
No, yeah, and that's certainly. But I thought it was worth mentioning because for no other reason than what Ryan said, which is that we watched a movie that came out 40 years earlier and doesn't feel the need to devolve into that sort of thing.
So many reviews from we have to move on, but so many reviews from critic screening. We're just like talking about the audience reaction, the uproarious laughter to that, you know, Mickey Rooney-esque impression instead of talking about the movie. Like, it was just a bad decision. Yeah. Mike, what do you recommend from Fast Times?
Oh, we've kind of already danced around this, but I'm going to choose one of his lesser seen ones that I still think deserves to be watched. I'm going to go with Everybody Wants Some by The Link. You want narrative list? Do you want a big crew of people trying to figure out who they are? I'd say this is a little more zany and a little less heartfelt than Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but it's a good time in the movies.
I love Everybody Wants Some. I never thought, like, you would think that after Linklater made Dazed and Confused and then grew up for 30 years, he would not have this in him.
Right.
And there is some things like Greg was talking about. There's some scenes that, you know, were controversial of like, why are we seeing this drunk girl's boobs and stuff like that?
There's more gratuitous nudity in this one.
But Everybody Loves Some is a blast. What is less of a blast, but I think means as much to me, character-wise, as Fast Times is Adventureland. And Adventureland took a lot of shit when it came out. Like the classic hack tag is that you promised me Superbad because of the trailers. And this is like a serious drama. And therefore I hate it, as opposed to it's a good serious drama. But the whole, like, it's a little more focused, a little more narrative than Fast Times, but not by much. And I love all these performances. Adventureland gets me in the same way Fast Times does.
Adventureland rules.
All right, Mike, because you were more supportive of your movie, I guess I'll give you that point. Most surprising actor, Mike. Who were you most surprised to see in this movie?
There's a lot. Basically, if you're like me, you just remember Phoebe Cates and Spicoli. But I'd have to say the person I was most surprised, because I've never known how old they were, and I certainly didn't ever think they were youthful in 1982. Forrest Whitaker made my jaw drop. I'd just be like, what? You were a child.
Yeah, and apparently, like he's shot to be the biggest person of all time. And one of the things I read today is that he came in looking fierce as possible, like the scariest person that the auditioners had ever seen. And then they said he had the part, and they looked out the window while he was walking to his car, and he just skipped and danced and then jumped in his car to get away.
It's adorable.
Greg, who you got?
I was most surprised to see Eric Stoltz.
All right, I'm officially calling this. Neither one of you are going to say Nicolas Cage on purpose.
Well, because
I feel like his is you hear
too
that
famous.
Yeah, and you hear it associated with this movie a lot. Like, did you know? But like, when I saw young Eric Stoltz, I was so surprised.
Before he had his mask surgery.
Yeah. I had just totally forgotten that he's in it, whereas the Nick Cage thing, I feel like that comes up often.
Yeah, you see pictures of it on the internet all the time.
It's also maybe just because he has that kind of face, but like this was his first movie, and I know he was a Coppola. He even went by Nick Coppola, but it feels like the movie's like, isn't it crazy he's here? Like,
are you guys surprised to find out that apparently, and how many lines does Nick Coppola have in this movie?
a half? None? I don't know.
I think
No
it's close to
lines?
0. He had constant improvisations for the director. He was nonstop improvising.
What if you took my face off?
Greg, time you most wanted to high five Spicoli.
Okay, so I'm ambivalent about Spicoli. Sometimes I'm like, cut down the antics. Other times I'm like, this is a child and I'm worried for him. Like, what's his future hold? Probably Supreme Court justice. But beer! I love beer. But the time I really wanted to like give him a crisp high five was when he spent 8 hours listening to Mr. Hand talk about American history. And honestly, in his own words, he tries to sum up what he's heard. And for my 2 cents, like, I think he does a pretty good job. Mr. Hand's like, nah, not really. But anyways, good for you. I was like proud of Spicoli.
Mm-hmm.
He basically put big concepts from history into his own words. He did the work. He tried. And I wanted to give him a high five.
That's not bad, Mike.
Does it? I'll get to mine, but doesn't it seem like Adam Sandler watched this and went, "I'm going to make a whole
Yeah,
movie just about
absolutely.
Spicoli called Billy Madison"?
It feels like a lot of people watch this movie and went, you know what? I'm just going to do that.
Universal really pushed all people involved to make a Spicoli Goes to College sequel.
I'm so glad they didn't. Mine is because I think it's one of the funniest jokes, and the delivery is amazing. It makes no sense. Get out of here, Curtis. I don't hear you unless you knock, to his little brother.
Yeah.
And his little brother does stomp out. And so like Spicoli is a lot like Mr. Hand in that moment. And it made me laugh. And I wanted to high five him for a good joke.
And just laid there despite Curtis saying, "Get up, you butthole." Man, if you don't overuse butthole, it's the perfect insult. But that one's going to Greg because bonding with teachers. Mike, pound for pound performance. Let's get into it.
We talked about her the whole show, and I think we did for a reason. It's Jennifer Jason Leigh, and I've seen a few of her performances in adult, and she's pretty good. Love her in Atypical. More people should watch that show just so I know it's not a fever dream I made up. But the work she does here, man, without saying lines, if you drill down to the one, it's her reaction to realizing Linda is full of shit in the bathroom about her letter to Doug. Every little moment, twitch that JGL does there is amazing.
And it's JJL.
That's what I said.
You're saying JGL, which is Joseph
JJL.
Gordon-Levitt.
JJL.
It's not. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was not in this movie.
JJL.
Greg, pound for pound performance.
I'm gonna give it to Judge Reinhold, carrying a lot of the weight of the comedy of this movie, imbuing a lot of energy into lines that wouldn't be that funny otherwise, including read the sign, learn it, live it.
He's such a square.
And then, also being humiliated, also being angry. I felt like he gave all the different dimensions that exist within the movie, exist within Judge Reinhold's performance.
That's a good call, but JJL was the star of the show. Pound for pound performance meant you guys could have picked Nicolas Cage.
That's true.
He would not have won. Cringiest moment. Greg, was this a hard one to pick, or was it like, this movie's not that cringy?
I felt like this movie was not that cringy. Especially considering it came out in 1982. But I will tell you the part that made me cringe, Ryan.
I would love that.
Phoebe Cates says to Jennifer Jason Leigh, like, you should have sex. You're 15. I did it when I was 13.
Ugh,
And
gross.
I guess that's probably not true.
Right.
But it still is just like
Worrisome.
upsetting. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, and it does remind you of like everyone in this movie is supposed to be very young, and I don't think the movie is exploitative, but it's like an icky air kind of passes over the movie in that moment.
Plus, especially when you realize that Linda is lying.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's what kind of makes it ultimately maybe not be so cringy, is that like it's not true. She's probably honestly never like kissed a boy at this
But
at
at
this
that
phase.
point in the movie, does Stacy know Linda is lying?
No.
You know,
No way.
and that's like so.
And
she's-
as an audience member, I did not know that.
so it's worth it to Linda to make herself seem cool in front of Stacy, and have Stacy go and have sex just so she looks cool.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, cringiest
That is
moment.
a perfect pivot point to my cringiest moment. And I know the movie wants us to cringe, but I'm going to really drill down the cringiest moment of a 26-year-old taking a 15-year-old to have sex in a high school dugout. What, you don't have an apartment, radio guy? No foreplay, no making out. He just sticks it in right like after 3 seconds of kissing, and it made me gag.
And
Yeah.
then never contacts her ever again.
Well, besides the flowers that she
Oh,
has
yeah.
to throw away, much like the baby she later has to throw away. Oh,
It's
I
not
get
a
the whole
baby.
movie now. All right. Everything about this movie is cringy, but in the right way. I think that Greg is the closest, so I'm going to give it there. Amy Heckerling, director of Loser for Mike and Clueless for Greg. Do we see this here? What do we see building here? Mike, what do we see as Amy Heckerling's director signature moment?
I think it's you'll see it here, you'll see it in Clueless, you'll see it in Loser, you'll see it in Vamps. It is the montage. I think Heckling is a master of montage and how she uses it to not just be like, here's this world and here's this tone, but here's these characters. Like in such a short economical amount of time, here is the world we're entering in right now. And it's instead of like a lazy ass dumb monologue, she crushes it.
And I would argue it's not a short amount of time. It's a full 8 of the first 10 minutes are montage. I just don't mind it. I love every
Yeah,
minute
it
of
flies by.
Greg, what do you think?
Well, I would say that I would have to default to one of the most like iconic shots in the history of cinema, which would be Phoebe Cates coming out of the pool. But I would extend that a little bit because I feel like what we get the memory of Phoebe Cates coming out of the pool. That's the commentary, and the commentary is not over until we see Phoebe Cates try to get that water out of her ear. And I really feel like, and then of course walk in on Brad masturbating in the bathroom, but I feel like that whole shot and the way it holds up two texts at the same time, which is the text of the high school sex romp as artificial story, and then the reality, and it shows you that those two things are how different they are, and at the same time it's like, again, one of the most iconic shots ever, so that those sort of like double realities there.
Every time I watch this movie, it is crazy to think about what the world thinks about the Phoebe Cates scene, which is just there for their own pleasure, and what it is in the context of the movie. And we've talked about this a lot, but and like I don't want to just say that Heckerling's great because she's a woman, or like only a woman could have directed this, but like I do kind of think that a dude would have taken this opportunity to exploit it for all it was worth, a la Shannon Elizabeth in American Pie.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how like Top Gun is famous for like getting a bunch of people signed up to the Navy when it came out?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think when this movie came out and was popular, like a ton of houses got locks on the bathroom doors? Because if you go to to houses that were built in the 70s, there aren't a lot of those. But everything after that, like lock the bathroom door. Greg, I'm going to give it to you for that one. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to find out who won this episode and how this movie's going to do in the overall bracket. Guys, we did okay, right?
We
got
did all
through
right.
it. That was a
I
rough
think we-
day, a rough
Yeah.
show. We made it through. Ultimately, I think that Fast Times is kind of a masterpiece. I think that it's so much more than the sum of its own parts that I can't believe. Like I always sort of put it in the camp of like Caddyshack, of like,
Yes, yeah.
oh, everybody quotes it. That's older than me. Funny. And after watching it, like, it's so much more than that. So much more than the sum of its parts. Almost like flawlessly performed. And we talked about like who do you want the camera to stay on and who do you want it to move away from? As hard as like Mike Damone is to watch, like it's really nobody. Like it's who I want the camera off parents, and the movie does that for me. In
Are
a very
there parents in this movie?
like if they did, they would have talked in a trombone style. That's how it sort of felt. And then, as Greg, you pointed out just before we cut, it's got the 82 and the timelessness. I don't know. Like, is there some sort of Cinderella path?
Oh, yeah. I think it could find its silver slipper, glass slipper, its lost shoe.
I think this show probably represents the best it's gonna do. Like maybe it might win in the early rounds, but I think that we have reclaimed it. Like we have made the fact that it is in the running. Because I wondered if we had to include this movie, it would have been such a missed opportunity not to have this be in the 8. I just don't know if it has what it takes to really win the whole thing, but I do think that this movie needs to have a different reputation than the reputation it has. It needs to have more of a reputation about its heart and about the incredible performances in it and its meta commentary, instead of just the very two-dimensional conversation people have about it.
But you're saying it's a different situation than, say, Addams Family in 91, or even like a little bit Holy Grail in 75, where we were like, we included it, congratulations on that, but otherwise, like this is even though
in the
it might
running,
not take the whole thing down, like this is more than just we had to pick a comedy.
For sure. Yeah, no, it felt like that at first, maybe, but that's just because this movie we don't have the right memories of it. And hopefully now that it's like the 40-year anniversary and everything, hopefully this will be one of the movies that people talk about again and just watch in a different way, not just as another American Pie style movie, but instead more like a P.T. Anderson movie.
If people are watching it now who aren't fucking 15 and still are only get American Pie, then like there's no saving them.
Well, I mean,
like they truly are fools.
I mean, but American Pie has nothing left. It's like the jokes don't work anymore, and also it's vile in other ways. I don't know if I would necessarily watch it with her, but let's just say I had a 1.5-year-old daughter. I hope that she watches this movie as soon as she's ready. Like, this movie is filled with, I think, good messages and the treating of very serious subjects in a way that appropriately, like how they should be treated. Greg, last week you scored 21 points.
Woo!
This week you scored 31 points.
Hey, that's so many more points. Man, I must have won. That feels
Greg,
really good. Mike, sorry you didn't win.
Greg, you explicitly told me to stop being so engrossed in your conversation.
Yeah.
And just award you points.
Yeah.
And I did. Mike, you got 29. Greg takes the whole thing down.
There were so many chunks where I'm like, Greg is spitting fire, I'm spitting fire, and Ryan's just fucking slack-jawed listening instead of giving us those sweet points. Greg should be at 55 and I should be at 54, you fucking hack.
I can make it so both of you fucking lose next week. I'm tired of this reputation. This unearned, dubious reputation. Do not give this to me again, or you will find your asses in grass and I'm the lawnmower.
Well, it was well thought, Mike. I thought that was a really good one. Honestly,
Yeah.
I wondered about this show just because I thought, I wasn't blown away by the movie, but the more we talked about it, the more I really did.
You got to talk about it with your friends, man.
Yeah,
it's one of the opener uppers.
And yeah, I think that we really did explore all the layers that are just there, that Heckerling and Crow just put into it. But it's definitely the kind of movie that, and you said this, Mike, before the show started, it's the kind of movie that you need to get your teeth into, that kind of gets like stuck in your head and you need to explore. And I think that the show was a fun opportunity to do that.
With that, I will be so happy when you guys with me in the 2004 season watch Loser. And it also is just as good.
Absolutely not going to happen. As someone who looks just like Zach Orth, star of Loser, I can guarantee you that's not going to happen. Guys, we have so many awesome 1982 shows coming up, including movies starring Hot Boy Ricardo Montalban, Hot Boy Kurt Russell, and Hot Lady Zelda Rubinstein. I'm so excited for all three of those. But until we get to that, keep watching those movies.
So, while Americans overwhelmingly support the right of an individual to make their own decisions about abortion, unfortunately, that right is no longer protected anywhere in the U.S. The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade on June 24th. Abortion is a basic healthcare need for millions of people who can become pregnant. Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health and independence of all Americans. Even if you live in a state where abortion rights are upheld, access to safe medical procedures shouldn't be determined by location, and it shouldn't be the privilege of a small few. And we're already seeing certain medical practices be restricted even in those states. You can help by donating to local abortion funds. To find out where to donate for each state, visit donationsforabortion.com. That's the number 4, donationsforabortion.com. If you or someone you know needs help, or if you want to get more involved, here are 5 resources. 1. Shout Your Abortion is a campaign to normalize abortion. 2. Don't Ban Equality is a campaign for companies to take a stand against abortion restrictions. 3. Abortion.cafe has information about where to find clinics. 4. PlantCpills.org provides early at-home abortion pills that you can keep in your medicine cabinet. And 5. Choice.crd.co. That's choice.crd.co has a collection of these resources and more. You can also find all the links to these resources at podvoices.help and in the show notes. We encourage you to speak up, take care, and spread the word.